The UFC finally announced the UFC Oklahoma main event coming up here July 18th, and it's going to be Kamaru Usman against Dricus Du Plessis, a fight that we've heard rumored for, I want to say, months. This is a fight that I remember coming on my radar like early in the year, and I'm not sure what took so long. We know DDP went to Instagram and said something along the lines of like, oh, we're just waiting for Usman to sign. So I don't know what's going on, but this year in particular, when it comes to fight rumors and fights actually getting booked, I feel like things have been booked really late. Am I wrong about this? I feel like a lot of fights we've seen kind of booked, not in, the order we usually see it, where we get a little bit of a heads up or something. Because again, it is June 21st and they just announced a card main event, it's coming up in a couple weeks here. So I don't really know what took so long. I will mention that it was this fight and it was the Islam and Ian Gary fight that took a while to get booked. They're both officially booked now. Usman and Islam have the same manager, just saying. I don't know if there was some hold up there. I'm not sure. But this is kind of listen, first off, my impressions on this fight is I do like it. I'm a little bit intrigued by it. I think I speak for, a lot of fans that we wanted to see Usman and Belal Muhammad. It's really disappointing we didn't get that fight. We saw Belal Muhammad and Gabriel Bonfim in their last fights. Obviously, Belal losing that one, but there was real heat. There was, that whole podcast episode that got deleted and all that. Like, I just feel like that was a missed opportunity. And then also we saw Brendan Allen fight Shabazian. I think we would have rather seen DDP fight Brendan Allen. So as much as I love this fight, I'm going to watch it. I'll talk about it obviously in just a few seconds here. I do feel like the UFC missed the ball in the matchmaking. They could have done DDP and Allen, and they could have done Usman and Belal Muhammad. But nonetheless, Usman moving up to 85. He's at the tail end of his career. Maybe he doesn't want to cut the extra weight. I'm not really sure why he's moving up. He did fight at middleweight, obviously, against Khamzat Chimaev, and actually had some success in that fight. That was a closer fight than people thought it was going to be. But let's do a quick tail of the tape between these two, DDP and Usman. If we go have a look here, DDP is 32 years old. Usman is 39. Records-wise, 23-3 to 21-4. 6'1" to 6 feet tall, 76 apiece. So as far as the odds on this fight, if I had to guess, I think they'll make DDP about a 2-1 favorite, but I think the odds will be close. I don't think it'll be DDP being a big favorite in this spot, despite the fact that he's the former champ at middleweight and everything else, because I think people are going to look at that fight that DDP had with Khamzat Chimaev and say, well, Usman's got a similar style. He can get takedowns like we saw with Usman and Joaquin Buckley. So I think they will be given the respect to Usman, but both of these fighters coming off some pretty big layoffs. Let's go have a quick look at that sort of heading into this fight. So DDP has not fought since he fought Chimaev. That was back in August. For some reason, I thought that fight was earlier, but still, pretty decent layoff here for DDP. Not crazy, but, again, August, we haven't really heard much or seen much since then. And obviously that was a fight where DDP didn't have anything for Chimaev. Chimaev totally dominated him. And it goes to show that every fight is different. People just assumed because DDP lost to Chimaev that Sean Strickland was going to get destroyed too. That's not what happened. But you look at the Chimaev fight, only 37 significant strikes, but the big one here is the 12 of 17 takedowns. So that really took a hit for DDP. If we look at his takedown defense stats, he's at 34%. That's really low. So that's where Usman could have some success in this fight. We also know he can go 5 rounds. So that makes this fight, the style matchup anyways, a little bit interesting and everything else, right? So that's something to kind of keep in mind. If we look at his overall strikes, 5.18, striking accuracy is at 48%. His striking defense is at 52%. So a couple stats here that are a little bit alarming, but if we look on the Usman side, his strikes landed per minute is lower at 4.16. His striking defense is better at 55. His takedown defense is at 89%, but I don't think DDP is going for any takedowns here. His takedown average is 2.79. So I think the big thing is like the strength and size. Like obviously they're around the same height and reach and all that, but you'd got to imagine that DDP is going to be a little bit stronger in this spot with the fact he's been a mainstay middleweight for a while. If we look at Usman's last fight, that was the Buckley fight, and that was back in June of last year. So it's going to be over a year that Usman fought, and that's not really good for a fighter that's in his age bracket here. If we look at it, 39 years old, just turned 39 recently. So these are some things to kind of keep in mind when we're looking at some of the things going into this fight. Big layoff, and then prior to that, he fought in 2023 against Chimaev. I will point out, though, there's going to be a narrative going into this fight, and I just talked about the style matchup here, that people are going to be like, well, he did really well against Chimaev, forgetting the fact that that fight was in 2023. Like, that was a long time ago. So I just don't think, and again, I know he looked good against Buckley, but I'm not too high on what Buckley's done in the division. We saw him go out there and get dominated by Sean Brady the fight after. I think that speaks more to how Buckley is and not, how great Usman is. But we'll find out in this fight. But I know there will be fans being like, well, he did well against Chimaev, so therefore he'll beat DDP. I'm not in that camp. I do think the style matchup's interesting, But my early pick on this fight, just kind of talking out loud here, I do think DDP gets this done. I think he keeps us on the feet. I think you would have to imagine after what happened with Chimaev, he's working on his takedown defense and also making sure that he's going to be training with some wrestlers for this fight. But he's in the prime of his career right now. I think prior to the Chimaev loss, DDP looked pretty good overall. There were a couple fights where, again, I remember Adesanya, there was, I thought the fight was fairly even before he got the submission win. He did knock out Whitaker, Sean Strickland. I mean, again, 2 wins over Strickland, like, say what you want, but I think the verdict's out on Sean Strickland. He's a pretty damn good fighter at 185. So I think there's a lot of things that sort of work in DDP's favor as far as him being a mainstay in the division, as far as him winning the belt. And we'll see. Every fighter's different coming back from a loss, right? Like, that was a pretty brutal loss he had to Chimaev. Can he come back, make the adjustments, and really improve and look good in this one? So that's kind of my big thing in this fight, because if he doesn't, and if he loses to Usman, that could be really, really, really not career ending, but very huge setback here if DDP doesn't win this fight. For Usman, I mean, I just wonder, it's obviously a good spot here if he's able to win, because he would beat a former champion. And, we've seen the UFC kind of reward former champions in other weight classes. If they get a win or two, then they can be pretty high in title contention here. Like, imagine if Usman wins this fight, and then I'm assuming they're going to do Strickland and Imavov. I don't know if they're going to do the Chimaev rematch. We'll see. If they do Strickland and Imavov, if Usman wins this fight, would it shock you guys if Usman beats DDP and then gets the next title shot? It wouldn't to me, just because, again, Usman is a former champion that holds a lot of weight. So that's where things are going to be interesting. But like I said, reasons to like DDP here: mainstay in the division, good striking, pretty good, I think, overall, defense and all that stuff, and just someone that, has got it done again in big moments here. Again, you look at the strength of schedule, especially since basically Whitaker, Strickland, Adesanya, Strickland, Chimaev. Again, Chimaev, the only fight that didn't go his way. Overall, I think he's looked good, so I think that favors DDP. The weaknesses, though, the takedown defense, the style matchup with Usman, all that stuff. You got to imagine DDP is going to be a little bit faster in this fight, too. And then on the flip side, I think with Usman, I mentioned the strength there with the wrestling, takedowns, all that stuff. I think striking-wise, I'd say they're fairly even. The other thing I forgot, I guess these guys probably trained together when they were at Killcliff, right? So there's probably some familiarity there. I'd have to, I'd be curious. Someone should ask DDP that if he does an interview. I don't know how much media he'll do. He's kind of gone into, not hiding, but DDP really hasn't done much media since the Chimaev loss. So I'd like to get some insight there. But yeah, I mean, Usman can do it. I'm not going to count him out here. Again, the style matchup certainly favors him in that way. But my big issue with him, the big thing that I look at is the age. Again, he's close to 40 here. It's the layoffs. Like I said, Chimaev, Buckley. And again, I don't really rate Buckley that high in the welterweight division. So as good of a win as that was, I just don't know what type of Usman we're going to get. I think fighting up a weight class is going to be tough. Again, I did look good against Chimaev, but I think every fight is different, especially a fight that's happening 3 years later. So my early pick for this one, and I'll do an in-depth breakdown on early look and give you my official pick, but right now I'm leaning DDP, and I'm thinking it might end up being a decision here, only because Usman seems like a pretty tough guy to finish. Like, outside of Leon Edwards head kicking him, back in 2022, he's a pretty tough guy to take out. So I'm leaning DDP decision, but we'll see how this unfolds. So let me know your thoughts in the comments on this fight, what your early pick is. Was this the fight to make? What's sort of your thoughts on this matchup coming together and everything else? And kind of random bits on Oklahoma City, but I'm just glad this fight's getting made. And also, what do you guys think of the fight being announced so late? I would like to get your thoughts on that too. So follow me on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, @Lynch on Sports. My name is James Lynch. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.